Have you ever wondered why your pepper harvests are so small? Today, I'm going to go over the mistakes that I've made this year and explain exactly the reasons why I've been struggling with this. Hello and welcome back to the Greenhouse Gardeners. So today's episode is going to be a bit of a pepper greenhouse update, showing you what's been working really well and showing you the changes that I've made, because there has been a lot of changes in the greenhouse so far this season. The weather has been absolutely fantastic. We have had probably the driest summer that I can remember, especially the start of the summer, for a really long time, which has meant that the peppers have absolutely loved it. They've also struggled in some conditions as well. As I mentioned already, and as you probably already know, I grow in a greenhouse. So it gets ridiculously hot in here and also ridiculously dry. The dry can be really good because it really helps to prevent slugs and snails coming into the greenhouse and eating all of my seedlings and plants, etc. So that's actually brilliant, but it does slow down the pepper growth in terms of the amount of flowers that it produces, because they need a certain level of humidity. Now, I made a separate video about that quite recently called Stop Flower Drop. So if you're struggling with that issue or have struggled with that issue, definitely check out that video, because it's well worth having a look at the different tips and tricks on how to prevent that or ease that from happening if it's currently happening for you. So I won't go into too much detail in this video, but as the weather has cooled down a little bit and the sun's now starting to come back out, we've had some torrential rain, which has been absolutely fantastic, filled all of my water butts back up, which is great. I'm starting to see lots more flowers on my pepper plants. I went overboard, as I usually do, on planting pepper seeds. And once those seeds turn into little seedlings and then slightly larger seedlings, it can become very difficult to get rid of them. And I have these chili grow planters, which are absolutely fantastic. I haven't used them for a number of years, and I used them this year because I thought it'd be a waste not to use them. I've got plenty of plants. Let's cram as many in as I possibly can. And this was the fatal mistake that I made many, many years ago, which pushed me to stop using them, that I had completely forgotten about, and made that mistake happen exactly again. So as you can see, the plants, they're doing well. They're not bad. They are producing plenty of peppers for the size of pots that they are in. But I think that they could be doing better. I'm also noticing as well, because of the heat and because of how quickly they're able to grow in these sub-irrigated planter style systems, they are running out of resources so quickly, and it's really difficult to get nutrients to them via a top dress because the pots are taller rather than they are wide. So they don't really work in the same sort of way as I like them to work with the self-watering system, which is an absolute powerhouse in terms of being able to top dress and keeping nutrients and the constant moisture. These pots dry out really quickly because it's a long way for the water to have to go up, and it's because it's tall rather than wide. So what I have decided is to basically convert some of the plants that I've got going on here into some larger pots that I've got. I've been waiting for the self-watering planters to come back into stock, which hasn't happened yet. And I'm looking at what's going on with some of the plants that I've got here. So the Amy Sweetwax here, there is some new growth coming on there, but they look like they're starting to slow down a little bit. The Golden Cow Wonder, which is a bell pepper, they're quite small. And again, there is new growth coming, but the real emphasis that I want to make on pushing the growth is actually on these three plants here, which is the Trinidad Perfume Pepper. So the Trinidad Perfume Pepper really struggled at the beginning of the year. Now, I believe it's a Chinense variety, so it did not respond well to being planted out early like all of the other peppers did. They were very yellow and very slow growing for a really, really long time. And to be honest, I thought they were just going to die. But obviously, I persevered with them, and they have been a much slower growth throughout the season. They're putting on a lot of peppers now, but I'm noticing a huge amount of new growth and flowers on them. So what happened after the initial slow growth is, because they were weak and because they were tender, they have just been bombarded constantly with pests like aphids. So fortunately nothing else in here, but just aphids, and obviously lots of ants herding up the aphids. And I did all of the treatments: insecticidal soap, diatomaceous earth, just spraying them with water to try and knock them off, etc. And really nothing worked. Having said that, The one thing that I think has really made a big difference is using a lot of fermented plant extracts and aerated compost tea. I've always used fermented plant extracts, but I've moved over to predominantly using fermented plant extracts because personally I found aerated compost tea to be too much of a hassle in terms of the preparation, the requirement to have to use it in a very short window. If you are just a gardener and you don't do anything else, it might be more convenient. But when you've got lots of other things going on in your life and lots of other things happening, you can't just suddenly dedicate, oh, I've got an hour window to get this going before it loses potency and also just goes bad. So I've gone back to fermented plant extracts. So much more convenient. To be honest, I haven't really seen much of a difference between using the two, as in terms of one is much better than the other. So anyway, fermented plant extracts is what I use and what I will be using moving forward. I'm making lots of it, which is great. I've also got another video coming out very soon going through pros and cons of what it is and a recipe as well. So if you want to know how to do that and why to do that, I've got a video which will address that coming out very soon. So the reason why I'm talking about that is because being such a sick plant, as I mentioned before, with the constant aphids, it only started growing stronger and healthier and faster once I started using the fermented plant extracts and adding microbial life to the soil. At a point, I was probably doing it a couple of times a week, where I was obviously filling the reservoir itself, but also once that was dry, pouring from the top. After a couple of weeks, all of a sudden, the aphids didn't just suddenly disappear. I just started seeing much, much more healthy growth on the plant. And then as a byproduct of that, because the plant got stronger and healthier, the aphids started to just disappear. So that's the story about how that really helped and brought this plant back to life. Obviously, I was using those fermented plant extracts on all of the other plants as well, but because they were already strong and healthy, didn't notice that much of a difference. In terms of a change, obviously it helped keeping the microbial population up high in the soil. But yeah, so I've got 3 plants tucked in the corner here. I'm going to harvest all of the peppers on these pepper plants just here. And then I'm actually going to finish those off for the season. I know it's still early to do that. It's only the last week of July. But to be honest, they're taking up a lot of space for what I don't think is going to be a very large return on investment over the next probably month to 6 weeks of life that we've got left. As I said, there is new growth starting to appear on these plants, but there's not that much, where on these Trinidad perfumes there is loads of flowers and loads of new growth. So if I can get them into bigger pots, because I'm starting to see some nutrient deficiencies because of the restriction of these small pots, then they're going to have the best possible chance of putting on more growth, more flowers, more peppers over the next probably couple of months if we're lucky. So that's what I'm going to be doing today.
So what I'm doing here is I'm just taking the Trinidad perfume peppers that are currently situated in the chili grow planters, and I'm just harvesting all of the leftover peppers, whether they're ripe or unripe. We'll easily fry them up and use them for lunch, so there's no waste there. I know it seems like a bit of a shame to be getting rid of these plants, but to be honest, as I mentioned before, looking at where they are currently in their life cycle and the current growth that they've got, I think the return on investment for keeping them is pretty low, so harvesting is key right now. Now in this stage just here, I'm just emptying out partially some larger pots, I think they're 20-litre pots, and using the old pots that the Trinidad perfumes are currently in just to get the shape right, so I can easily plant the pepper plants into these pots without any root disturbance. And I'm just adding a mixture of mycorrhizal fungi, bloodfish and bone, and some seaweed meal into the bottom before popping the plants in there, just to give them a real boost and get them situated nicely.
Okay, so here is the update of what the greenhouse is now looking like. So all of the peppers that I had started off their lives in the chili grow planters. Last week, I started to harvest and reduce down and moved into the self-watering planters from a company called Biolan, which is one of my favourite planters that I've seen out there. And particularly, it was the availability that drew me to them in the UK. When I purchased these, I got them through Amazon. They were readily available. but they are not anymore, unfortunately. I'm actually speaking to a supplier about getting some in the UK. So if you're interested in these and you're based in the UK, let me know down in the comments, because I have been in talks with a UK supplier and they're due stock very soon. So yeah, let me know about that and I can send you over links, etc. And they are going to be having them quite soon. So these, I have noticed, have had some really great growth coming on since I've transplanted them into these new planters, which is understandable because these planters absolutely pump out plants, which is fantastic. Now, I have planted the Trinidad perfumes into these larger pots, which I believe are about 20 litres, so plenty big for them. You can already see that they had started to really push out lots of new flowers, and the pepper growth on there has been absolutely fantastic. Honestly, this was a little bit of a surprise to me because they were tucked in the corner. One day I just had a look and I was like, oh my God, there is loads of peppers on there. And the more I was looking, the more I could see. So yeah, I'm really, really pleased with all of this new growth that's coming on up here. And this is the harvest that we've got from those 6 plants that we've just cut down. So beautiful peppers there for many days of lunch to come. And on the other side, I've got lots of Bocking 14 comfrey cuttings that I've had growing over the last 3 to 4 weeks, and they're doing fantastic. Some new starts for some succession sowing, and the other batch of Trinidad perfumes in a self-watering planter. So I've got 3 in this one planter, and you can see they're a lot smaller. So that's given me some good information to base on how many to plant per planter for next year. Some dwarf tomatoes, which have been growing really well, and some more dwarf tomatoes over here, which have been growing fantastically as well. So that's it for the update in the greenhouse today. Lots of things been going on in here, lots of fruits, lots of vegetables growing. So I've been really, really pleased with how everything has been growing on this year. We've had a fantastic summer so far. Long may it continue. And until the next update, please check out all of the how-tos and the tutorial videos that I've been putting out. There's lots of really good stuff in there. And if there's anything that you think that's worth me covering, please let me know down in the comments and I'll happily look into trying putting something together for you. Until next time, happy growing.